Welcome back to the Two Hearts, One Home podcast. I'm here with my host and beautiful but very, very difficult wife, Lady.
Hi guys, welcome back to our episode number 2 of our podcast Two Hearts One Home. I'm very excited to be here with my husband and doing something that we love doing together and enjoying and talking things that how we think and the perspective that we do have about controversial topics or things that usually happen in relationships. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this new episode.
So we do have a little bit of a format. We're going to jump through what we learned last week or something that has been on our mind and we've been trying to figure out or that type of thing. Then we're going to jump into a sort of relationship topic, not directly
About us,
but a relationship topic and our perspective on that. Then we're going to jump into a controversial topic around relationships or dating. And then we're going to jump into dropping gems. And dropping gems is a segment we're going to do at the end of each podcast, giving sort of little tips and tricks or something that, it could be a podcast we listened to or something we bought that's just helped our lives or something like that. And that will wrap us up.
yes.
So let's start with what we learned last week. And I believe, Lady, you're first.
So what I learned last week, it was with a situation that it actually happened to me. So last week I was in hospital. I was in hospital for 3 days and I was quite sick. I did need to get a surgery done and I was getting a bit how would you say that, desperate, because I really want someone to do something about the problem or the issue that I was having. But nothing happened. I was in hospital for 3 days. It was a lot of back and forward. And then I went home. A few days after, I go back to a consultation with a specialist.
Can I sorry to cut you off. Am I able to add some context?
Yeah.
So, Lady was told she was going to have surgery.
Yeah.
And then sat in a waiting room and then waited a whole night. And then in the morning got told that she wasn't going to have a surgery. She wasn't on the waiting list, but she was told that she was getting put on the waiting list. And then got told that and then sort of broke down. And then they were like, okay, and did put her on the waiting list. Then she got moved to a ward and told that she was going to have surgery. She was on a waiting list. And then last minute, day 3, they said, oh, no, actually, we're not progressing. Go home.
Yeah, which is a bit frustrating. Imagine you are 3 days in a hospital expecting for someone to do something about your problem.
Very frustrating.
Yes.
Very frustrating. For me as well as a bystander.
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And I got actually quite cranky and I was at home and I was working from home and I was trying to get that done and then try to help Lady and the hospital was 30 minutes away. So I was ready to just leave work and drive down there and yell at everybody, It was very frustrating.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can't imagine how you felt.
Yeah, especially because this is an issue that I've been having for 14 years. And I want a solution is actually affecting my normal life, daily, day-to-day, daily basis, life. So coming back to the story, I go back to the consultation with the specialist, and then she talks to me, and then she explains what were the reasons why I didn't have the surgery at the time, that I needed to wait a few days, and that I will get the surgery eventually.
Which, leaving the hospital, they didn't provide any of that closure.
Yeah.
And I guess the in between leaving the hospital and going back to see the specialist was there was a week in between or something, was it?
It was a week, but I got a few days after I left the hospital, a call that I was getting appointment, which it did make me very happy because when I left the hospital was a bit of uncertainty.
Uncertainty, yeah.
So I didn't know what was going to happen. And in my opinion, in Australia, the health system is pretty bad. And going home means they don't have you in the hospital anymore, so they ask no caring because they don't have you there waiting.
Controversial that.
Yeah.
I believe that Australia has a good health system in the sense that it's free and it's this and that and blah blah blah. But you know.
Yeah. So when talking to the specialist, she explained the reasons why I didn't have the surgery at the time and why it was really important to wait and that I was eventually gonna get it done. So the moral of the story is sometimes in life we are not patient. We forget that we need to be patient to get things. Sometimes we want things to happen right now in the time that we want, in the terms that we want, but
almost desperate towards getting that outcome immediately.
Exactly. And unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. Like, of course, who doesn't want things to happen like in the clip of a finger? But life doesn't work that way, and it's really important that if something is not happening in your life right now, it's because either better things are coming or it's not the right time. But so we just need to learn how to be patient and just wait for things to happen eventually and just let life to go with the flow. I don't push things because sometimes when we rush things, it doesn't go well.
Yeah. And I guess like you need to be putting yourself in the best situation possible to get the outcome.
Exactly.
But so doing everything you can to get that outcome, but like not being desperate in the sense and still having patience to be able to like deal with any upsets, like, oh, actually you're not getting surgery, you've got to go home and you're like, about to have a nervous breakdown, but still following up and putting measures in place so that you're going to get there eventually. But being patient along the journey.
Well, in saying that, just remember in life, we can't control everything that happens. So the other moral of the story is you can't control what happens in life. It's how you react towards situations or how people is towards you. So
nice.
The only thing that we can control in life is how we feel and how we react towards things. So patience is the key. So just remember that.
Patience.
Yeah.
Okay, so mine's a little bit different, but potentially along the same lines. I'm going to talk about consistency and how it's affected my life. How I didn't understand why it's important. And why I've been thinking about it in the last couple of weeks. And I'll just go back to a story, like a little bit in the past. When I was about 21 years old, there was all this stuff happening in my life. It was a big changing period in my life at 21. I'd moved to Sydney. I was living with my uncle and auntie, and I think I was having a breakdown of some sort. I can't exactly remember, but I was talking to my uncle, and I'm pretty sure I was having a breakdown. And my uncle was trying to instill some wisdom upon me, but I just wasn't. I guess wasn't capable of absorbing it in the way that I should have at that age. And he was talking about consistency and what consistency can achieve for you. Or what you can achieve through having consistency in anything. And what's made me think about it in the last few weeks is, I keep hearing consistency when we're talking about growing our podcast, our social media following and that. And obviously, we want to be outputting genuinely interesting content, but also like content that is genuinely us.
Exactly.
So it's not, we're not trying to, we are faking it until we make it, but like we're not talking about things that we don't genuinely have an interest in or whatever, you know what I mean? So thinking about consistency, like, oh, I just keep hearing, oh, you just got to be consistent. You just got to be consistently making episodes and consistently dropping, you know, reels and all this type of stuff. And I get it now. I get the context to that. But then in the bigger scheme of things, I was thinking about consistency and how important it is in your life to have consistency through, you know, multiple different avenues, you know, consistently being patient, relating it back to what you were saying, babe, and but consistent in your job, like consistent in posting reels online if you want to do that. If you want to be a mixed martial artist, or you know, a kickboxer or whatever, if you're not consistently training, you're not going to be any good.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, like, I was thinking about it, and in my job, I'm a sales professional. I've been in sales for 8, 9, 10 odd years, and they call it activity. You know, you've got to have the activity to have the outcome of being successful.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to make all the phone calls, and you've got to do the follow-up meetings, and you've got to do the follow-up phone calls and all that type of thing. But that's just consistency right there, isn't it? And I guess if you want to lose weight at the gym, you've got to be consistent and go.
Exactly.
Or, you know, or through a diet or going to gym. If you want to be massive and have heaps of muscles, or, you know, your girl's booty or whatever, you just got to be consistent. And, you know, consistency is hard.
Yeah.
You know, to do something religiously every single day consistently is very, very difficult. And
yeah, it requires a lot of effort.
Well, that's right. And if you think about your life, like you guys, if everybody just takes a second to think about your life, and is there, what have you actually been consistent in, like truly 100% consistent in throughout your life, throughout the past year or whatever? You might have goals and dreams and aspirations to get somewhere and do some type of thing, you know, whether that be successful in your job, or, you know, create a business, or, you know, a weight loss journey or whatever, and think about how consistently you've tried to achieve that goal through recent. And if you think about across your life, what have you been consistent at? You've probably been consistent at sleeping and eating, and probably consistent at going to a job, not necessarily performing well at that job, just going. And very interesting, isn't it? Like, and so, and then I was thinking about the ways that, what have I actually been consistent in my life, and how has that affected me, like good or bad, you know? And because there's good consistency and bad consistency.
100%. Like sometimes we have like terrible habits of, like, I don't know, drinking and going out and partying, and that consistency, but consistency doesn't take you
anywhere. It hinders the other stuff that you're dreaming of doing and not being consistent at. Exactly. Which is really interesting. Yeah. So and I was thinking about, you know, what activities or things or goals have I actually been consistent at in my life leading up until now. And like, there's not a lot, you know, there's been stages that I've done certain stuff.
Yeah.
But when I think about it, I've been consistent at going to the gym. I've been consistent in going to work. In some cases, in some stages, consistent at performing well in those jobs, and some stages consistent in not performing well in those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that reflection's like pretty interesting for me, because, you know, how do you change something if you don't reflect on it? But then I was reflecting on things that I've also been consistently doing, you know, negatively. And, you know, for a long time there, I was partying, I was sleeping around, I was that type of thing. And you know, and at the time, you're not like identifying that you're being consistent in a negative direction. You're just caught up in the moment and in life, and not
in
necessarily.
A habit, yes, and you don't realize.
Yeah, like not like reflecting on that, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm having a good time, I'm going out, I'm meeting girls, I'm doing this and that. But then, work sucks at the moment, and like it's like a stampede or a snowball effect of like, every Monday I feel like I don't want to go to work, and then I just, because I'm like still feeling shit from the weekend, and then I'm making it through to the week, get to Wednesday, and I'm feeling like okay, and then like there's Thursday, and then Friday I've just killed myself all week trying to get into a good mentality, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go out this weekend and get smashed
Yeah.
and stuff, and then just repeat the cycle and repeat the cycle and repeat the cycle, like you
Yeah.
know,
But
consistency in the wrong direction.
yeah, but I also think like remember to follow bad habits. It's not that
Well, the
hard.
habit's a consistency, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not that
Yeah.
hard. So if it's not that hard to follow a habit, why it's that hard for us to follow a good thing?
Exactly.
And it's because of our mentality.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just give up in things, and it's like, oh,
Because it's hard.
exactly. Like I just go back now. This you're mentioning this. So I need to be doing stuff all the time, and a person that needs to be with hands on everything. So the other day we went to Kmart and we bought all these iron crafts stuff for me because I wanted to do some few things.
Oh yeah, it was like almost a need, like
Yeah,
she
I
asked me,
need it right now. I need it right now. So I went and I bought I don't know if I'm gonna pronounce the word correctly, like a kit needling.
a needling kit,
Needle kit.
like a what's the word?
Yeah, it is. I think it's called kit needling, like
Needling kit. Yeah.
Yes. Anyways, it's like a figure that you like. You just like follow a pattern that you just follow, and then you just create colors, and then you just make a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's with lint. There's a word for it. I can't think of it.
Yeah. So then I bought it. It took me probably 2 weeks to go back to that and try
to try it. Yeah.
And I went and tried, and I sit down for 5 minutes, and I got so stressed because I couldn't do it, and I just gave up. So I'm pretty sure I'm pretty good at art and craft and stuff, but I didn't have consistency. I just tried. It didn't go well. It didn't go how I wanted to go, so I just stopped. So it does go back to everyone. Like I'm pretty sure if you don't know how to do something in life, but then you consistently go and do it every day, you're just gonna get better.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing for growing a following social media, becoming a better
that's
person.
why I've been reflecting on, because consistency, like they're like, oh, you just need to post 3 videos a day on TikTok to get, to make it or whatever. And like, and obviously we want to do that, but we don't want to like overstretch ourselves in the sense that like we're having an output that isn't sustainable, I guess. But we still want to work hard. But let me come back to when I am consistent, like researching things and my interests, and sitting in the front of the computer and figuring out all these different little weird things. I am really consistent at that. But the part of that I'm not consistent of that is the action that should follow all of that consistency.
What I noticed with you is so he does gets hyper focus in something. Hyper focus in something, and like he just does it for like 3 weeks non-stop, day and night, do it, and then also then drop it.
Just drop it, yeah.
So
it's pretty interesting.
But I'm pretty sure if he did have more consistency in the same thing all the time,
I'd smash it.
Yes. So, but that's something that, and I'm pretty sure I do have it as well, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people have
Everybody would struggle with it in whatever sense. So I guess to cap this little section off around consistency, I think that not to have too many things going on, but figure out something that you like or something that you think is going to impact your life. If you consistently do it and stick to it. And no matter what, set yourself a goal, 3 months, whatever it is. It might even be a smaller goal than that. This is something I really want to do, and I'm going to consistently do it for a week, every day for an hour or whatever. And don't give up when you fail, because that's the problem as humans. Like we give up when we fail. Yeah, or when it's hard. When it's hard, we just go, "Oh, this is too hard." Yeah. We'll just sit there for an hour thinking about why it's too hard. Like that's still consistency in the right direction.
100%.
So that's my goal, is to be more consistent in a few aspects about my life and our lives.
Yep.
In a positive direction. Like we don't drink. We're having a wine now, actually, as we do the pod, but we don't drink very much. We're away for the Easter, the long weekend, so we're having a couple. But if we're at home, we'd be going to the gym tomorrow morning, because we are consistent in that aspect.
Yes, 100%. So we know
yeah.
how to be consistent, but we just don't choose.
Apply it in all
Yeah.
in the really difficult sectors. If we want to grow a business and a podcast, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's move on. So the next topic is, this is pretty intense too. So, but how your childhood experiences shape our romantic relationships. So childhood experiences could be,
Your
how your
upbringing,
upbringing, your parents, and that type of thing.
Yes, or your family structure. If you grow up with a mom or a dad, or just a dad, or just a mom, or
how you were influenced by that.
Yeah, or like I don't know if you did have like grow up being really religious or not. So coming to this topic is actually a big thing for me, because I did come from a very dysfunctional family household.
In what sense?
In the sense of, I grew up only with my mom and my sister. My dad was never around.
Or not around much.
Yeah. Regardless of the circumstances of why he wasn't around, or why he wasn't present in like raising me, or being close by, or helping me with my needs or whatever. And I'm not here to like judge or
it's not about like just smashing your dad.
It's not about him. It's about how did affect me, and how it actually affects a lot of people. So for my whole life, I always have the need, because my dad was never there, and I didn't have a male figure in my life.
Well, for context, for the listeners, like me and Lady have a similar upbringing in that sense.
Yes.
So like I came from a broken family as well, raised by a single mum as well. So yeah, sorry, man.
My dad was not around. I always feel the need to have a male figure in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So since I was probably, I don't know, 12 or 13, I always feel like I needed to be dating guys, feeling wanted by them.
Yeah.
Sort of feeling protected by a male figure too. So it actually, and it's funny because people make fun of like, oh, you have daddy issues, or that's a daddy issue.
And well, that's a common thing for people to say, like in society. You mean like, oh, she's got daddy issues?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is a bit derogatory. Derogative as well, which is a bit shit. But
and to be honest, in like before, I used to be like, haha, yeah, maybe I have daddy issues, and I used to make fun of even myself. But then I just started, like, I am being always a person that goes to therapy and is very open to like talk about my feelings and.
Well, with certain people.
Yeah, with certain people. I mean, like going to see someone that helped me to regulate my emotions and make me feel better about myself and my life. So going through therapy, it just did make me realize that saying that I have daddy issues, or people making fun of people that about daddy issues, it's not a nice thing, because you don't understand where they're coming from. Talking to therapists and psychiatrists, it actually is, as a woman, I don't know about you, but as a woman, it's very important to have a male figure in your life, and it's very important.
Well, I think it's very important to have both figures in your life.
Yeah, exactly. Like have
have a feminine side and a masculine side.
Yeah.
Like I really struggled with not having my father there, and it caused a lot of issues. But the problem is, at the ages that you're experiencing those issues, you can't identify that, because you're a child and you don't know how to identify even as an adult, it's hard to identify when you're in the moment what that emotion is and what's causing you to react or act that way.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, 100% not having, because my father, just some context, my parents split up when I was 5 years old. I think you were 7 or something.
So for some, with my situation, it was like my dad did move away for work since I was like 6 years old. So they didn't
Oh, so
got
it
divorced.
broke down from that. Yeah.
Yeah, but like since 6 years old, I didn't have a male figure in my life.
Yeah.
My dad.
So similar age, and it really like disrupted me. So like, so 5 years old, and mum and I sort of moved out at 5, and then we stayed, near dad for a couple of years, I think 2 or 3 years, and then mum just had no support. So, but even at that age, I was pretty disruptive at school, and I have ADHD. We both have ADHD actually, and so just a little plug. We're going to be doing an episode next week, and we're going to talk about ADHD in the relationship and
how it affects us as a couple and
how
how
it
we
affects,
manage to go through that.
And being non-medicated versus medicated
100%.
as well. But yeah, so I had ADHD, and I didn't get diagnosed until I was like 16 years old or something. And I would at that early age, at like 5, my or 6 or something, I just started primary school. I'd already started to show signs of like disruption, like being a bit naughty and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like not having that masculine figure really affected me. And then like as the years went on, it like really like cascaded. And then so I guess let's just now like, disrupted childhood for you, babe, and disrupted childhood for me, both not having male figures in our lives. Obviously the disruption may be a little bit different and the feelings may be a little bit different.
Yeah.
The way that it affected my relationships, like, having separate parents, for the beginning of my life, obviously I was raised majority by my mum, but relationships at the start of my life, just some context, like mum didn't have many boyfriends. She was very respectful. She didn't want a whole bunch of men coming in and out of my life.
Yeah.
And now that I think about that as an adult, I'm like, oh man, that's like really admirable. Like, she really didn't want to, have a whole bunch of dudes coming in and out of my life and stuff. So I respect her for that. But being raised by her majority, I had this real respect for women and that type of thing. But also I had this unconscious thing, and it's really weird to like reflect on it, because I had this ingrained thing that I didn't identify with until much later on in life, that like I kind of always felt like I needed to be with somebody. So when I did start dating, I felt like I needed to be with that person. And then like I went like hard on my sleeve, and even if it wasn't necessarily the right person, I was just like making it work, and sometimes not getting treated the best.
Mm-hmm.
And just like whether I got cheated on or whatever, like forgiving, like, no, you need to like get through these things. And I guess that's like originates from, coming from a broken family and not wanting that.
I totally understand where you're coming from, because I can relate. I used to stick by or always wanting to have someone, because I didn't want to follow the pattern that unfortunately my mom had, that she was a single mom. She did have to raise 2 girls by herself without support. So I didn't want to have to go through that. So I used to, which if really
but it's
affects...
not even for you. Was it even like it wasn't a conscious decision for me?
No,
it was just like an ingrained like it was just like,
yeah, you are not obviously 100%, you are not conscious of what is actually happening at the moment, and you don't understand, but you just have this need that you don't
to
understand.
Hang on
Exactly. You don't understand where it's coming from. So I 100% can relate to what you're saying, and like obviously sticking by people that doesn't It didn't deserve.
Didn't deserve it. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like I've had both scenarios where I've been a piece of shit and I've been with people that are a piece of shit as well. But so like the first part of my life, I jumped from like relationship to relationship. So would get out of one that I was trying to cling on to, didn't know how to be alone, and then would jump straight back into another one, 3 months, 6 months later, that would go a year or something, and it wasn't the right one. Like I wasn't like identifying people for the right reason. I was, lacking something and trying to fill it with somebody else, and maybe, yeah, do you know what I mean? Like I was trying to fill that void.
And I also think I do understand completely what you're saying, because it happens exactly the same to me. My whole life, since I was 13, I was jumping from relationship to relationship, and I didn't know how to be alone, because I always feel like I needed to be loved by someone else, which is really weird.
Me too.
Because I don't know, I am pretty sure you agree the same as me, but my mom gave me the whole love in my life, like a lot of love. I'm pretty sure your mom too, because
Absolutely.
like your mom and my mom, they're both very caring and affectionate and like really good. But I think it's just something to do with not having that male figure and missing out on something.
Yeah, well,
missing out
well,
on
even if it's not a male,
love.
even if it's not a male figure, even if it's somebody that had a broken home, but they went with the father instead of the mother, I think that if you're missing one parent, you're supposed to have the support and love and all of that from that person, and that's missing, and that's the problem.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm gonna say something, and that's I'm gonna just join you in how did it affect my childhood. Yes, in that I needed the male figure and I feel like I was jumping into a relationship, but how I did feel affects me a lot, and I think to this point it still affects me. It's the abandonment feeling.
The abandonment feeling, yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you relate, but it's like the feeling that you stick by someone that it's not because you don't want them to leave you, and then you just forgive them, and then you just stick by something because you don't want to feel abandoned because one of
or
your
like
parents,
you're not good enough.
Exactly, because one of your parents, sadly to say, it happened. They didn't make the effort to be there for you, and they didn't make the effort to stick by, because these days I do feel like it did change a little bit, and even it's a lot of broken homes and divorced parents that the parents make the effort and in the present the child's life.
And
still.
Listen, I don't want to criticize my dad at all, to be honest. I love my dad at the end of the day.
Like
100%. I love my dad at the end of the day, but did divorce like affect me? And we're talking, I guess, about your childhood experiences affecting your romantic relationships. It definitely did. So let me go further on into my story. So once it got to a point where I'd just been relationship, and I feel like that was that abandonment piece or whatever, or potentially my mum's teachings, like meet the right one, stick by them, and all that type of thing. And then it got to a point where I was just getting in the wrong relationship. So I made a decision to myself that I was like, no, I'm not getting another relationship for minimum 12 months.
You needed to be by yourself.
I needed to. I knew I needed to. And so I set myself a goal of that. But that wasn't easy. And I said, but I would like to be single for 2 years to understand who I am and what I'm like.
To learn how to love yourself.
Love yourself. Alone. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I didn't think it was possible, because I originally set the goal for 24 months. I was like 2 years. And then I was like, but worst case scenario, minimum 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, and it was tough. Like, it was tough. I met some people and stuff, and I was like, no, like, just stick to your goal and whatever. And I think at this stage, I think it was like 24 or whatever. And then all of a sudden,
I wanted to be single for the rest of your life.
I wanted to be single for the rest of my life. And this is where I feel like I took influence from my father. So because I I did see my dad once a year up until a certain age. That might have been, well, I saw my dad for once a year up until I was 13, and then I went and lived with my dad for a couple of years. That's another story. That's crazy. And then my dad tried his best. Like he's a good guy, and he tried his best. But you got to remember, like he didn't know how to parent. Like he
Yeah.
came into parenting. He did 1 to 5, and then did 13, and I was super out of control. And he was running a business, and he was supposed to just know how to raise a child by yourself, not with that other person, without like having all of those like formative years of like developing his skills as a parent
Exactly.
and stuff. Like he didn't have that.
Yeah.
And like I understand that now. And I don't know how I would have went in the same situation, to be honest. Like I don't know what I would have done. Like
Yeah, like
especially if you,
nobody knows
because
how
it's
to be a parent unless you become one and then you
and
stick
grow.
by.
Like
Yeah.
you grow like with anything, consistency. But like I guess what my dad did do was he was pretty good with women, and he did have a few girlfriends throughout my childhood. So when I went to, so I saw that, I guess that stuff impresses on you, as you're growing up. Like dad's had like a few girlfriends, because every time I go there, or every second time I go there, he'd have a new girlfriend, and I'd meet her. And
Yeah.
then when I went to live there for a couple of years, I had another girlfriend. And then I left, and so I guess that impressed on me up, and that kept going throughout my life.
Yeah.
And he's just a man trying to figure it out, and he's got a kid, and he's divorced, and he's trying to figure out, find a woman that he has a special bond with, or whatever, maybe tarnished by marriage or whatever a bit, and just scared to commit into another one, which I'm sure we all deal with. But so 24, made that decision. I need to stay single for 2 years, minimum 1 year, and then I just ended up being single 7 years until I met my wife.
Yeah.
So, but then I think I took that influence from him, and then I went through that like other phase of, just playing around, and then forming a I'm scared of commitment now. Like I got engaged before I was 24 to a young lady when I was like 21 or 22, and that fucking fucked me up a little bit. And so like I think first part of my life was dating life was probably around divorce, and then my mum's upbringing and those teachings. And then the second part of my dating phase was definitely influenced by my father. But all of this stuff was happening like unconsciously. Like you're not aware of any of this as it's happening. And it's so
unless you sit down and reflect and like,
yeah.
oh, I actually now think that, because
Yeah.
sometimes you start to normalize things and you just say,
Yeah.
I'm just a fuckwit, for example, and you probably will be like, oh, I'm jumping from woman to woman because.
Oh well, I was having
who
fun
knows?
at the time. I was having fun at the time,
Yeah.
but like, was there like substance to it? Was I lonely or whatever? I didn't ever necessarily feel lonely, but yeah,
Because you didn't want to, and you were fulfilling that need with having someone around.
yeah,
Regardless of it was commitment or no, it's just the presence of having someone. And the same goes for me. I mean, like this day, I don't judge myself anymore. Because I did reflect and understand, and I did therapy, and I, of course, now I understand my upbringing and my childhood without having a male figure. It did affect actually, but growing up, I used to jump from man to man, and in my
like
mind, relationships, yes. And I used to be just like, maybe I'm just a slut.
Yeah,
that's
like judging yourself.
Yeah, judging myself and being really harsh because you don't reflect and you don't think it's something behind that, and you just think that you are the problem.
Yeah.
And yes, you might be the problem. Yes, you might have something that you need to be fixed, but it's on you to fix it and change that pattern. But that requires a lot of effort.
Well, it
Like
requires like reflection. Yeah.
exactly, and break the pattern of like something, a trauma that is coming from your childhood is very hard. So that's why I always suggest to people, like, if you have the opportunity, go to a therapist, go to a psychologist, be open, talk to someone, make the effort and try to change. Single for a while. I mean, for maybe around a year and a half, maybe 2 years. But then before that, like through my, like being a teenager and like throughout high school, I used to, or maybe not like jump from relationship to relationship, but maybe always to like be dating and like seeing guys and like meeting new people and always feel like wanted by a male figure. But then when I was 20, I was like, this is not what I want in life. I don't want to be like this. I am not this person. So I actually moved countries and I wanted to start fresh and I wanted to be just to prove myself that I wasn't that and my childhood wasn't gonna create the person that I am as an adult anymore. So I moved countries and then I saw a guy for a long period and then I have my ex for a few years too. But then in between my ex and the guy before that, I did jump really quick. So I was continuing to do that pattern. And yes, and then when I broke up with my ex, I didn't want to feel lonely. I didn't want to feel alone. I was feeling like I needed to have a male figure to compensate the feelings and not make me feel sad. So I jumped into a dating app straight away. I went on a date, the biggest regret, and then since then, I was like, no, I'm not ready for that. I need to learn, and I need to learn how to love myself being alone and feeling happy by myself and not have this need of a man in my life anymore. And then this is when I make the decision to be by myself, to have a time for me and loving me and enjoying the time and do things for me and not thinking about anyone else anymore. Because when I was from relationship to relationship, from man to man, I always wanted to be perfect for them and not for me, and I always was trying to feel or fulfill that needs and feel accepted by them, and feel happy about that and just go from there. So that's why I took time. I'm not gonna say that I didn't went out, like did go out and like see in a few days, but I didn't want to commit to someone.
In comparison though. Like.
Yeah, I didn't want to commit to someone, or I didn't want to be that type of woman anymore. Where like, oh, I need to be this for this man, so he accepts me and wants me.
Yeah.
No.
So let's cap this section off. But I guess it's not a reflection on your parents' decisions, and it doesn't make them bad people for the decisions they made or any of that type of thing. It's just a conversation on reflection and how it's affected us, or and like, you know, if you get the opportunity, or if you already have, I think it's really interesting to think about, because it definitely influenced the way that I dated and the way that I have been in relationships in various stages in my life, and it's pretty interesting, you know, and potentially only even now I get to reflect on it that I'm in a happy marriage and I'm happy, but you know, in each stage I didn't necessarily recognize what was causing it, or the pattern, or any of that type of thing. But moral of the story is, it definitely affects you, the way that you're brought up, the way that you're brought up, and your childhood
the way that
experiences.
you react or go and live relationships.
But it doesn't make your parents or that bad people, I guess.
No, and it doesn't define who you are as a person either.
Yeah.
But it's on you to break that pattern. Pattern is the word? Pattern. Pattern, and it's on you to change that and change that habits and be you, and like obviously start to spin into relationships based on what you actually want in life and know the trauma that you have behind. So yeah, that's the reflection and how it actually affects it definitely.
Yeah, and I guess that's a really raw topic,
Yes.
you know, like, you know, there's so much more to unpack in there.
Exactly.
Like, you know, take that with a grain of salt. You know, everybody has their own experiences. Everyone has a story. Like everyone in the
100%.
world has a story. You know, and the reasons why they behave a certain way, and you know, you could meet somebody and they look a certain way, and you think, oh, this person, but you have no idea what they've been through.
Yeah.
In their life, and what their upbringing was like, you know, like, and I think it, you know, not only, you know, maybe we touched on that in another pod, but not only like how it affects your relationships, but how it affects your behavior and the way that you do things and why you do things. Like it definitely affects.
Yeah, and how do like have interpersonal relationships with others, with friends, with family members, with at work or things like that.
Yeah,
it actually like your childhood and upbringing, it does affect you, but this is just reflection on like you can change that, and it's all on you.
It's all up
Don't
to
let that define who you are.
Define,
sorry.
All right, so next topic, this is another juicy one. We're going to talk about the impact of technology on the modern dating world and relationships. And this is bloody interesting because we probably have different experiences in a sense. But
well, fun fact, we met on Bumble.
We did meet.
Shout out to Bumble. We met on Bumble. We happy married.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah. So it's opened the world. It's opened up the world to, because before internet dating was there, you had a couple of options. You would meet somebody through a friend group. You would meet somebody at work or somebody out and about. And a lot of the times, different for girls, a lot of the times as a man, if you're not confident within yourself, there's no, especially in Australia, I'm not sure about Colombia, I think Colombia is a little bit different, more warm and friendly and that type of thing, but in Australia and Sydney in particular, if you're not a confident dude before internet dating, like, you ain't walking up to many people. So you got limited options. You got who's in your town. Like, imagine if you live in a remote town. Like, you've got whoever's in the town.
Yeah, no one else to.
And old Stacey, you know, Stacey, who's the sexy Stacey of town, she's gone. She's been snatched up. You know? And so, you know, before internet dating, it was very, very small, the demographic that you were able to meet. Whereas internet dating, that just opens it up. You can sit on the toilet and be talking to somebody and potentially making a new match, or you can go overseas and within 24 hours you've matched with 10 people, 20 people, 30 people that you can chat with and potentially pursue that like the next day.
Yeah.
Whereas like in the past, you had to be outgoing to meet people outside your circle.
Especially if you are a shy person and introvert, it's actually really hard.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, from my perspective, I'm not a huge fan of online dating, but I think it was a door, like a big door to meet my husband, because for me it's a very hard, it's really hard to engage in person and like meeting people like in person.
Intense.
It's like it's hard, and like where do you meet people? Like you shouldn't, I don't know, like imagine like trying to like be flirtatious with someone at work.
Flirtatious
with someone at work.
It's
inappropriate.
It's inappropriate, and it may not be inappropriate, but like, what's the word? And it's a bit vulgar, but it's like, don't shit where you sleep. You know, like if you're working and you start dating somebody there, and then it goes bad, like you're gonna work around that person. It's a disaster. And like people did that. People still do that.
Yeah.
But and you know, potentially it's a good way to meet people because you actually get to know the person on a level before it's like a romantic thing.
Exactly, and I mean, like, online dating, like even that I have a good experience and I met my husband. I was in like on apps on and off for a year and a half since I broke up with my ex. But I was on and off because it wasn't working for me. So I would go on the online dating apps just because of course it was nice to feel like wanted by men and like having a lot of match and like being texting. But do you really get to meet real connection, like make real connection? Do you really get to make bonding? And maybe yes, maybe you sometimes you get to like connect with someone over a phone, over text, over phone calls. But then when you get to meet the person, physical in person,
Oh, like
in
catfish
real,
situation, you reckon?
it's like what did I got
What have
myself
I got
into?
myself into?
And it's like a
Oh,
bit,
that's so funny.
it's actually a bit shocking, and I have a few stories and a bit traumatic ones where like for me it was a bit like no, and I was very scared, and then I was like on for a week doing having match and like talking to a lot of people, and I will like talk to I don't know a lot of guys, and then I will like move them to text or to WhatsApp, and then the chats dies, and sometimes you just stay in connection with one or two, and then sometimes it doesn't go anywhere, or sometimes it goes everywhere. But the problem with me and online dating, how it was affecting me, is I was really anxious to meet that person in real life.
I think that's very different for women because women are way more vulnerable than men.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't capable enough of going actually.
And hey,
in real
guys,
life.
just to we're gonna, gender equality and LGBTQI and all of that type of stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff where I'm not super familiar with or whatever. So we don't mean to be politically incorrect or whatever. We identify as a man and a woman, so we're talking from that perspective.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to be ignorant or anything. If we have been ignorant, give us a comment, let us know, and in future we'll correct the way that we refer. But we're just talking about there is many people that identify as women as men, and we're chatting about that experience.
Yeah.
And so I guess for women, definitely a much more vulnerable situation meeting with a stranger than it is for a man, because a man's masculine and powerful and whatever, and not really worried about whoever he meets. He just rock up and be like hello, and normally of the opinion that I'm a nice guy or whatever. So blah. And then a woman arriving, maybe they've had a bad experience in the past or whatever, or maybe they're meeting with somebody that's not that nice and is a creep and whatever. So there's always that chance. So definitely different. But I was a serial user of the internet dating sites and did pretty well, and had a lot of fun and promoted them and stuff. But I think that what is I have identified with it now, since yes, I did use it for going out and meeting people and blah blah blah, but I didn't necessarily always have in my mind, like there might have been girls that I came across that thought I was a fuckboy or a wanker or whatever in my past. I'm sure there is, and if there's any listeners, I apologise, but we just weren't the right people, and that's what happened. So, but I mean, I didn't ever have. I was never kind of like, oh, I'm just gonna go fuck all these people. It wasn't that. It was just that when I met people, it didn't work out in the way that we wanted it to, and it wasn't. Men have a desire to have sex. Women have a desire to have sex. If that happens, that's a mutual thing. Hopefully, under consent, that's a mutual thing. But once that happens, if it's not the right person, it fizzles out very quickly because the excitement's gone, the chase is gone, and you weren't the right people, and you didn't connect it on a certain level, and then you move on naturally without even necessarily having any intention to do so.
Yeah, but I just want to give an opinion in this. Maybe for women and men are a bit different in that aspect, because sometimes women stick by things even if it's not working for them, just because women have the tendency to give the opportunity to try it and to make more effort. for men, probably it's more easy to see or reflect. It's like, this is not working for me. This is not what I want in life. I want to move.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, women are more overthinking and stick by things more easy, and that's why probably a woman have the tendency to get hurt more often and stay with
Men
people.
still have emotion, by the way.
No, I'm not saying that, no, but women are a bit more emotional than like being conscious.
Well, I think that men can have sex with women
and not get attached emotionally,
and not necessarily have any emotional connection at all.
Exactly.
Whereas I think so.
Not all men. No, but not all women as well. Like not all women have an emotional attachment to have sex with someone.
I would say predominantly women prefer and tend to need a more of an emotional connection to be able to do so. There is an exception to the rule for sure.
But hey, why? Because women choose with who they want to have sex, and sometimes men, they just can't have sex.
A lot of the time just get what they can.
Yes, exactly. So that's a difference.
Yeah, definitely. And so, like, that just even goes back to the matching and all of that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, women get a lot more matches, women get bought drinks, all that type of shit, whereas men don't. That doesn't happen to as often unless they're really confident and they love themselves and, love themselves in a negative way or a positive way. If they're just confident dude.
But it's also
we're getting off topic.
No. But it's also a problem because, and I was going to say that, and that's how I saw it. Being an online dating app, and for example, being an attractive woman or like a pretty girl. I consider myself a pretty good-looking woman, Colombian one. So sometimes guys, they just want you for that because you look good, you look sexy, and they just want something from you. So obviously, you're just forcing yourself to get that and get hurt because they just want that. They just they're just seeing a good-looking woman, a sexy woman in there, and they don't get to know you deeply emotionally and who you are and how smart you are. So, I mean, like, online dating have the goods and the bads.
It has the goods and the bads.
It's a scary world. It's obviously you don't know what really is going to happen. But if you are up for it, I have a really bad experience with online dating. Don't get me wrong, creeps and scary, and like I was like, no, this is not for me. Then I have a good experience. That is where I met my husband, and I'm really happy.
Well, hey, I had bad experiences and good experiences too. Believe it or not, I've been catfished a bunch of times.
Yeah.
But I think that there is a misconception about online dating, and that misconception is, it's just for people to fuck. Yeah. Online dating can be that.
100%.
But I feel like online dating is what you make of it. Because if you are on there for the right intentions, as a male even, if you want to meet the love of your life, you can meet that person online. But it's how you approach that. And one thing that I think is beneficial from online dating is you can actually talk to that person before you meet them. And when you talk to that person before you meet them, you can actually figure out if you've got common interests. If you go to the gym, if you like reading, if you like... You can figure out common interests. You can figure out if you've got things in common before you go meet that person. Whereas if you meet somebody out at a club, all you know is that you find them attractive and you have drinking and going out in common. Apart from that, you don't know shit.
Exactly.
And like you're having a drunk conversation.
Yeah, exactly. When you're like online dating, you get to like see a small trailer of their life and whether you're getting yourself into.
That's good.
And sometimes you get to make good connections because you get to like click with someone, and it's really good.
But the question is technology. So I have an opinion. So I think that
it makes things easier. Yes.
It makes things easier, but I think it's also broken down. I think it's also broken down what a marriage or a relationship actually means in a little bit, because it's really easy to find the next thing. So I think that it's really affected loyalty and commitment and all of those type of things, because if this is too hard and I don't
this
is too difficult,
I can jump in there.
See you later. I'm gonna go get somebody else. Because in the past, like I said, Stacey's already been taken. You've just met somebody, it's a bit difficult, but there's nobody else around.
Yeah.
It's very hard to meet somebody else.
Yeah, and when you don't see that it's anyone else, and like sometimes you just want to make it work.
Yeah, but and it might be disastrous, and that should be a relationship that you should leave. But also, it might be just you being a little bitch, and you should suck it up and put it in, and you know, and invest in that relationship.
Yeah.
But I think that technology, internet dating, the access and the ease to meeting new people has created a bit of a culture within, you know, this generation from people that, you know, in between 30 and, you know, 16 or whatever now, the ages now, you know, or maybe even 40 and now, predominantly, there's obviously some older people, but I feel like it has potentially created a culture around, you know, well, divorce is way more acceptable now than what it was when my grandparents were in a relationship, and I'm sure they had major problems. You know, every relationship has problems, but it's whether you're willing, that person's special enough and you're willing to dedicate and get through it.
And make the effort, because we, as a human, sorry to cut you off, but as a humans we have the tendency to point fingers and to be like, you are the problem, I'm not a problem, and not reflect on what we're doing to maybe be messing up with the relationship. So that's the problem with internet online dating. It makes that accessible, or the access to have someone else that you like. The minusculous minuscule, I don't know, error or like red flag that you see, you'll be like, nah, that's it. I'm not for it. Like, I'm gonna find something better. And yes, might be in occasions that you might find someone better.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, it might happen, but also like sometimes you're like.
But I think it's the culture around. Like, if you're in a relationship that's dysfunctional and bad and you shouldn't be in it. Okay, leave. But I feel like it's built a culture around, like, just not sticking by to see, like, people leave way too easily, you know.
Just running away.
But the other thing that technology, I feel like, has created is you've just got so much more, like, put dating sites aside, put, you know, porn, put Instagram, TikTok, like, having access for men and women to always be scrolling and seeing something and thinking about the possibility of the grass is always greener. Oh, she's so fucking attractive. Oh, he's so sexy. Oh, look at this fucking guy that I'm, you know, married to or whatever. I think it's created that as well. I guess just technology in general, just having the exposure to have so many more attractive women and people's better lives out there, you know, like, it's not really, you know, Instagram or TikTok, what is not really a snapshot into somebody's life. Like, there's so much below that. But I just feel like, you know, if it's a man, having sexy women always in front of him, just thinking about, oh my God, you know, like, better life. Whereas if before that type of technology, that wasn't there, you'd have a porno mag that you might read or whatever, but like, it's just in each other's face all the time, you know?
Yeah, I just feel like technology just make you, back to my word, romanticize.
The romanticize of societies, like,
romanticize. I mean, like, romanticize, like, this perfect life.
The romance of life has gone a little bit.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, like, sometimes we have the tendency to romanticize that there is perfect life and there is a perfect woman and there is a perfect man. And come on, like, let's be honest, no one is perfect in this life. And let's be honest, no one is going on social media and post all the problems that you have with your partner. So everyone is gonna post the good things, and then if you're gonna base, they are just perfect, look at this perfect marriage and look at these things, and then you're gonna compare that to your real relationship, it's gonna be a failure because you're comparing something that you actually don't know in the deep.
What's actually happening.
So online dating have the good and bad, and technology in online dating and relationship
definitely has affected the world, for sure.
100%.
For sure.
Let's go to our last section, and we're going to drop gems. So it's gonna be a recommendation or something.
Recommendations,
Yes. So the recommendation for me this week is going to be, it's from my mother-in-law. If you have allergies, you have sinus and you get a lot of itchy nose, and sometimes you just get like runny nose and you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Wear a mask for 5 minutes or 10 minutes when you're having that like
Reaction.
the reaction. Wear it for 5 or 10 minutes, and it's gonna calm down. Then,
So hay fever, she suffers from hay fever. Yeah, and she resisted it for so long, by the way. My mum told her like 6 months ago, and she started doing it this week.
last week.
Oh, last week.
But it actually really works, and
Because she has really bad reactions where she's sniffing all the time, coughing, sneezing, and just sort of having to go to bed type of thing.
Yeah, really bad. So I just wear a mask, just keep it, and
5 or 10 minutes, you reckon?
yeah, 5 or 10 minutes, and it's gonna help you to regulate the breathing and like having that like feeling uncomfortable in your nose. It does really works, and I know it's you don't want to wear a mask and stuff, but
10 minutes.
trust me, it's going to make your life so much easier. So, do you have any hack or recommendation for?
I do. It's actually another podcast, and their mantra is they don't sell anything to their followers, and I think that we maybe like to follow the same mantra, but their only thing that they ask is that you share. If you get something from it, share their podcast. And so the podcast is Andy Frizzell's podcast. It's and I want to recommend a specific episode that I gained a lot from, and it's episode 485. It's got 2 parts. It's called The Process of Building an Empire, and it features Alex Hormozi. I think I pronounced that right. It's a cracker episode, awesome episode about how Alex Hormozi built his business, came from nothing, was a 20-year-old that left his father and grew his business. He's a multi-millionaire now,
very successful,
successful bloke.
guy with his partner.
With his wife, and he sounds like a really nice guy. Andy Frizzell is the guy that started the 75 Hard challenge. I've completed it. We're yet to complete it together, but we will. But that's a really, really, really cool episode. So I'll say it again. The Process of Building an Empire, Andy Frizzell featuring Alex Hormozi, episode 485. Go check it out.
So we recommend that.
Well, all right, guys.
This is all for everything in our podcast, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And any feedback is always welcome. Please like, subscribe, and share our content. And then we will see you in our next episode.
Next episode, episode 3. So just an update. We are on YouTube, obviously, with our video podcast, but we are on all major streaming platforms if you want to just listen to this. Spotify,
Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iMusic, so in any
platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Give us a follow, like, subscribe, comment. Give some feedback. Just another thing before we go, we would love to do every section at the end after our dropping gems. We would like to do a Q&A. So if you've got any questions, we'll answer them. Drop them in the at the end of every episode. Drop them in the comments, and we'll do that. Cheers.
Bye.
See you.